In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create a willow tree using Taiao inside of Cinema 4D. So I hope you really enjoy this, and if you do, please hit like and subscribe. I appreciate it so much. Thank you. This is actually a tutorial series of the entire process of how to create this animation, and you can see the rest of the episodes. I'm releasing one each day. This is episode number 3. How to create a tree in Taiao. So I'll first go into Insydium and go under Taiao. And I know there's this tree option, but I'm actually going to create a tree with that toPlant option. You can also use this to make flowers and such. So the first thing we'll need is a trunk. So I'll add in a trunk. And you'll see we do have a tree here, or at least the trunk of a tree. It's hiding a little bit in our grass. It's a little bit of a short, stubby tree in my opinion. So it'll need to be a lot taller. And here you can adjust the height. So we can have this really elegant, elongated tree. I'll look up some pictures of willow trees. This one's gorgeous, how it's reaching over the water. So look up images of what kind of tree you'd like to make and use that as a reference while you're creating this. And just a fun fact, if you go under Insydium Taiao preset browser, it comes with a lot of plants already, and some of them show the scale. You can choose flowers, trees. There's a palm tree here. There's a weeping willow. And if you want to look at another tree as a reference, excuse me, that's a great way to do it. If you want to see how Insydium created a tree, you can do that. I'm going to delete this weeping willow though, because we're going to make our own. And we can choose the profile of our trunk. We can make it skinny or big. You can choose its radius, make it a big thick tree or a skinny one. You can choose how many ring segments you'd like to have. You can see this better if you turn on your quick shading with lines. If we add in more segments or have fewer, what that looks like. I'm going to leave it at the default of 8 for right now and turn off segments, quick shading lines, just so that we can see better. If you click this arrow here, you can choose what you'd like to add next. And what we need are some branches for this tree. So now we have many branches. You can choose how many branches you want. You can choose how many ring segments those branches have. Similar as what we did for the trunk, you can adjust the length variation. You can choose whether or not if you'd like to have a branch at the end of the tree. I don't really think we need it. You can choose your branch angle. It could be reaching upwards, it could be reaching downwards. And you can choose your branch profile with this curve here by adjusting it. Under branch deformation, you can add turbulence, which adds some more bends to your branches. I'll zoom in so you can see it. And the more segments you have, ring segments, the more you'll be able to see this. So maybe just for showing this, I'll up the segments. And then I'll add some deformation with the turbulence. And now you can see these branches are really bending and have some nice deformation to them. This is a lot of segments though, and it will probably slow down my computer, so I'm going to take that down. You can adjust the scale of the turbulence. You can adjust the bias, so if you want there to only be turbulence at the beginning of your branches or only at the end of your branches, moving it in the negative numbers will make it only show at the beginning. In the positive numbers, it'll only show at the end. If you keep this at 0, it will show throughout. You can twist your branches if you'd like. You can also add twist variation so that they all aren't twisting the same amount. I'm going to turn off twist. Furling will be very useful for us because we're making a willow tree. So you can choose going to take down turbulence for right now. You can choose the angle in which these are bending. And how much of the branch is bending can be controlled with the bias. If we increase the gravity, our branches will be bending downwards some more. In this case, I'm going to just increase the gravity so that these branches are bending down. You can add some variation so that they aren't all bending down at the same degree. And if you'd like to have more branches coming off of these, you can add in some more branches. So now our branches have more branches. If you wanted to keep the same settings, you can copy and paste and put it in the hierarchy. So there's a little bit of a glitch there where the branches weren't showing up. So I don't know if you noticed that when that was happening on my computer, and I was like, why are these branches not showing up? So sometimes weird things happen, but I noticed that when I adjusted the branch count, then all these other branches started showing up. So that's really great. So if you're wondering what's happening and where your branches are, try adjusting the branch count and they'll show up again. Maybe you just need to refresh a little bit. Technology can be weird about these things. You can actually add furling also to your branch, so to your trunk. And you can also so here I'm adding furling and it's bending. You can also choose how much of that tree is bending. So if we want this to bend over the water, we could totally do that. And you can adjust the angle at which this is bending. That's quite a bit of bending. I'm going to take this back a little bit. A little bit of bend is good. These secondary branches don't need to be as long as the first ones. I'll copy and paste this branch under here. Now we're having the same issue where the branches aren't showing up. If we adjust the branch count, now all of a sudden we can see them again. These I'm going to add a lot of gravity to. And I'm going to add far more branches, because these are going to be the ones with all the leaves attached to them. If you'll notice looking at willow trees, the last branches have these leaves that, and they droop down, so that's the effect we want to go for. So we definitely want more branches. And we want these to be pretty long. Not that long though. And I feel like the gravity just isn't doing it enough. So we can even go beyond 100% and have these have 200% gravity. And now these branches are really drooping down nicely, which looks great. We have nice droopy willow tree branches. And another cool thing you can do with your tree is you can animate it growing with this growth slider under global settings, so this affects your entire plant, which is pretty cool. You can make it grow. You can also adjust the scale of your tree and make it huge or make it a little tiny tree. You can do whatever you want. You can also adjust turbulence scale, furling, and twist upon the entire plant if you don't want to go into the individual plant layers and adjust it there like I've been doing. I like to do it this way though because I have greater control over the tree if I do it on the individual layers. So what I just did is I copied and pasted this droopy branch onto also this branch. So hierarchy is very important here. It's controlling where these branches are coming from. So this is looking pretty good. I may just want to adjust the height a little bit more. For this tree. And I've 3D modeled trees by hand before Taiao existed, and it is time consuming. So thank you, Insydium, for making this. It's made my life a lot easier. It would have been so difficult to do this before, and now within a few minutes we have something that looks like a tree, which is incredible. And now you're probably thinking, well, now we have all these branches. What about leaves? So we can go in our drop-down menu and choose leaf. And the leaf settings are very similar to the branches and the trunk settings. Like you have twist variation, turbulence, furling, seed, position. So we had those with the branches as well, so a lot of the settings are the same, so I won't go through every single one of them just to save us some time. But now if we zoom in, we can see we have these planes, and these planes are the individual leaves, and we're going to need a lot more leaves. You can choose if you want your leaf to, if you go under the geometry tab, you can choose your width of your leaf, the length of your leaf. You can choose the number of segments. I want to save my computer from having to do too many calculations, so I'm going to go with one segment and just have these be basically planes. But if you wanted to, you could add more segments. I'm not going to do that, just to save my computer some hard work. You can also subdivide your leaf, and this works a lot like the subdivision tool, if you're familiar with it, subdivision surface. Now you'll see the leaves are nice and rounded. It's like dropping them into subdivision surface, and now they have that extra level of detail, and it rounds them out if that's something you'd like to do. You can even give your leaves thickness. I'm not going to do that. Up here you can give them thickness. This will of course slow down my computer, so I'm not going to do that. But if you're working on a tree that has fewer leaves and maybe you're zoomed in close on a leaf and you want it to have a thickness to it, you can do that. If you're making a succulent instead of a tree, succulents have those puffy looking leaves to them, and you could increase the thickness to make a succulent if you wanted to. Just an idea. I'll probably do it in the future because that sounds like fun. You can also affect your leaf profile in here. You can make it skinny at the beginning and rounder at the end. And you can adjust this using the curve. You'll have more control the more segments you have within your geometry because there's more that can be displaced. Under the distribution tab for our leaf, you can choose how you would like these to be distributed. You can choose the Fibonacci spiral. You can choose alternate, random, and all of these are based on nature. So I think what I've noticed with leaves that I've seen on willow trees is that they have this alternate distribution, which means they're alternating. Like, let's see, if we look at this branch right over here, you'll see the leaves are alternating. And that looks pretty realistic to me. I think these leaves need to droop down a little bit more. And we can actually adjust the angle of these leaves. So now they're drooping down a little bit more than what they were before. I'm going to remove the subdivisions. And go back to the main tab. I'm going to first hit save before I add in a bunch of leaves, just in case. You never know when you might accidentally crash your computer. So I think this is looking pretty nice. And if you want more of these trees in your scene, you can copy and paste it and just make subtle changes to your settings. And then that way you can have multiple of the same kinds of trees without having to start from scratch and have them look a little bit different from one another. So I think this covers the basics of how to create a tree, and we made a lovely willow tree. And if you have any more questions, please leave them below for me, and I'd be happy to answer them. If you have any questions about making a tree, I'm going to save adding materials and lighting for the last episode. So if you're interested in learning more about how to add materials to your Taiao plants, I will go over that, but it's too much for one episode, so I'm going to skip over that for now. There is one more thing that I'd like to show though. If you remember, we added wind to our grass. Now this is fantastic. You can also do that with your tree. So if I hit enable, now we'll have some movement in our tree. I'm actually going to turn off the forces in our grass temporarily just so that my computer calculates quicker. And you can choose what you'd like the wind to be affecting. So for me, I don't really think I need this wind to be affecting the leaves, but I really want it to affect the strength of the branches, so I can move the slider up. You can choose what part of your plant that the wind is affecting and to what degree it is affecting it. So the trunk is thicker, it'd have less deformation from the wind, so it makes sense for the trunk strength to be lower than the branch strength. And again, like the wonderful thing you can do with grass that I showed in the last episode, where I showed that you can loop grass, you can also loop your tree. So if we want them to loop at the same time, I could choose 60 frames, or I could choose to have it loop every 90 frames. Actually, I'll do that for the grass, and then I can also do that for the plant. And our wind simulation will loop seamlessly every 90 frames. So that's incredible. And that makes me really happy that that's an option in here, because that would be extremely difficult to do otherwise. And of course, if you want to see your simulation in real time, because this is moving so slow down here, and let's say you just can't get a good view of what your wind actually looks like, you can always go up here to animate, make preview, and watch a simulation of however many frames you want, and just do a viewport render, and then it'll run all the calculations so that it plays back to you in real time instead of with this delay. So that's definitely an option. You can choose all frames or a preview range or manual and put in your frames in here, what format you'd like it to go out as. I usually just choose an MP4. You can choose your frame rate, the image size. So that pretty much wraps up making a tree. I think it's looking pretty nice. The one thing that I will say is that the wind is going in the wrong direction, so I need to adjust that. So under forces, we have the wind direction again. And you can see that it is very, very, very windy. Probably a little bit too windy. We can take that back a bit. You can choose your wind strength variation if you want a lot of nice variation or not, and choose your turbulence scale. I'd like some more turbulence. It just adds some more variation and makes the wind look more organic, so that not all the branches are moving in the same direction at the same time. It's wonderful. You can adjust the seed, which is adjusting the randomness of that wind turbulence. And they actually call it noise type, but the noise type that I chose was turbulence. You can also choose from these. I think I chose FBM last time for the grass. And this is a nice looking animation we have so far. So that's the basics of how to make a tree. And in the next episode, I will show you how to make some water, because we have this lovely pond here, except that it's experiencing a little bit of a drought, so we need to fix that. So if you enjoyed this tutorial, please hit like and subscribe. And I'll add in some water in here. I hope you had as much fun as me. Before I sign off, I actually just remembered that I was going to show you how to have the grass go around the tree. So if you click on your grass object and hit avoid object, so under our grass, I'm going to drop this cylinder in here. You'll see our cylinders down there. I want to move the cylinder up. So what I've noticed is that if you drop your tree into the grass avoid objects, it doesn't work that well. But if you use a cylinder, it works much better. If you'd like to turn off the visibility of this cylinder, you'll be able to see much better now that there's no grass growing in that area that the cylinder is. And you can choose how far it's repelled. So you can see with the repel, the grass is almost growing around it, whereas with the cull option, it just isn't growing in that area. I think the repel looks nicer if you're going to see it up close. You can choose what's best for your circumstance. I'm going to adjust the radius of this so that it's closer to the radius of our tree. So that was a thing that I noticed, is that you really can't just drag and drop your plant, or in our case the tree, into the void objects and have it work. So I had to use a placeholder, and it worked much better. I had an easier time calculating a cylinder than the tree object. And there you have it. That's the tutorial for today. I hope you really enjoyed this tutorial. Let me know what you think below. Thank you.